Okay, what? Hold on. Well, I'd like to introduce you to the band. Oh, I'm sorry, I've done that. I'm being frightened. What are we going to do now?
So I've been happy lately, thinking about good things to come, and I believe it could be something that has begun. Now I've been smiling lately, dreaming about the world as one, and I believe it could be.
Well, welcome everyone to the Traditions of Peace show on the People for People radio, broadcast here from now sunny Northern California with so welcome. Just kind of put some prayers out for drawing in our natural weather patterns around the planet. And towards the end, I wanted to touch a little bit in about creating with and traditions of doing that, and just some stories and stuff, and so we can kind of chime in on that. I wanted to answer a few questions that came in over the week from last time. First, the one was about the coconut oil we had talked about on the first show. And, I said that I didn't like the taste of coconut oil cooked or fried. I don't mind it baked, but cooked, fried or stir fry or anything. You can get expeller pressed coconut oil. And apparently that doesn't have a smell to it or a taste. And it's fairly minimally processed. So that would be a good option for people who want to cook, fry or stir fry with coconut oil. And then, so the second question was about, as we get older, about our gastric acids decrease, and about drinking water during dinner is going to dilute the gastric acid. I've heard that, and I think it's probably a good idea not to drink water, but especially if you have problems with that. But as we grow older, then it's really, really important the things that I'm going to be teaching about is like honoring the seasons and living by the seasons, doing different things at different times of years. That's going to help maintain the integrity of our different organ systems. And so in that case would be the stomach, and the spleen in Chinese medicine is responsible for, good digestion. And since we're in the kidney time of year, so today's talk, I'm going to just keep going with the kidney in winter health issues or health things to think about in the winter time, since we're there. We're going to touch on a little bit on autoimmune diseases like diabetes and stuff, fatigue, arthritis, any kind of bone issues, and people missing a kidney for whatever reason. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And then, so about the digestive juices in the wintertime. So the kidneys like regularity. And so does the digestion. Oh, you know what? I need to take something off the stove. Hold on. Sorry about that. I'm heating up my quince that I processed from our quince tree. I'll talk about that a little bit here. So the kidneys really like regularity. So, our teachers used to talk about, like, if you could set up your weekly schedule, like some people, have chicken dinner every Tuesday night, or they go out to pizza every Saturday, or, eating meals at regular hours is really important. And I know that's kind of hard for people who are working and that kind of stuff, but if you could try to really sit down and think about your day, and if you could just start to make that a priority, is to have regular eating times. That's really important for the production, like a consistent production of digestive juices during the day, because your body is so intelligent. It's like on a computer program, kind of. I mean, it is that it's expecting to be eating at a certain time of day. And if you're eating at all different hours, and sometimes you don't eat, and sometimes you eat too much or a lot, or something way out of the ordinary, like it's in the middle of winter and you eat ice cream all of a sudden, in the morning or at night or whenever. It's just something that's out of the seasonal sort of, program. So creating those regular eating hours is really important and be really good, especially for people who get older, as we get older. So, just eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And if you want to have a little bit of, snacks, make sure it's in between. So sugar is always eaten after a savory meal. So because sugar, even fruit, will make the spleen and stomach fall asleep. So the worst thing you could do is like get up and eat cereal and give kids cereal, because then you send them off to school and they can't think properly because their spleen and stomach, which is related to their thinking process, is shut down because of the sugar. So anyhow, so in the winter time, you want to think about savory foods. I often eat soup from the night before for breakfast, or just leftovers, or just have some eggs or something warm and savory. And then if you want to have a sweet thing, like when my son was little, if he wanted pancakes or French toast or something, I would, we'd have our regular breakfast, and then a little while later, like an hour later, I'd make some pancakes so he can have that sweet thing, but after the savory first meal. And so for the digestive juices, then also to augment them, bitters is good, Swedish bitters or that kind of thing, ginger tea. If you have a problem eating certain kinds of foods, like a lot of people, with digestive problems will have problems with meat or something, or so you want to eat like black peppercorns right at the beginning of the meal, have it in some kind of salad or something. But so those digestive bitters would be good to take before you eat. I think you take it like 15 or 20 minutes before you eat, and that would help to augment those digestive enzymes and stuff in your stomach. But so what I do when I feel like I have to start doing that certain times a year or whatever, I get into something where I'm having problems. I don't so much anymore since I went through this whole process of healing my gut, which we will go through in future episodes here. But I always put the digestive, the bitters on the table or where I'm cooking or something, so I remember to take it. If you forget, just take it. Anyway, but the other thing is the enzymes. So I use a product that's got like a combination of different enzymes. They're capsules, and you take those towards the end of the meal. So, and that would kind of like augment if eating fermented food is not enough. So a lot of times when people are starting to deal with their digestive issues, I'm going to change screens here so I don't see this chat room. It's distracting me. So ideally, it's good to get your digestive enzymes and the probiotics that are going to help with the digestion through your food. And so that's what we're shooting for in the long run. But so while you're starting to get that into your daily habits of eating those things and even tolerating them, because sometimes people start with the sauerkraut or any kind of fermented food. Somebody else asked about kombucha, so I do have a lot of experience with kombucha, and I can talk about that. But so you got to go real slow with the foods because they can be really strong. And if you're not used to eating food-based enzymes like that, you could feel sick because what happens is over time, your gut starts to, if you're just eating, the standard American diet, we call it here, but where a lot of processed foods or whatever are just not a lot of fermented foods, like your body's just not used to it. So you just go really slow. So if you buy some, say, sauerkraut or even kombucha from the stores, you want to just take a little bit at a time when you're first starting it, like a tablespoon or something, or less if it's sauerkraut. Some people, if they're really like far off their digestive balance, they can only tolerate like a drop of kombucha or a drop of sauerkraut juice, or it could even be the whey from yogurt that would be your probiotic. And that when you have yogurt and it separates a little bit and you can see that water in it, that's whey, the water is. And so that's a really good source of enzymes and probiotics. But, like I say, if people are really sick, they have deep-seated issues like diabetes or any kind of autoimmune disease, or if you have any kind of reaction to the raw foods, the raw milk or yogurt or kombucha or sauerkraut, that kind of thing, just back it way down and start with a drop of the juice, okay, in your soup, or put it on your eggs or whatever it is you're eating. Just stick a tiny little bit in there so you start to get used to it and you don't react to it. That happened to me when I started. So I got all excited and, probably drank like 2 kombuchas or something, or one whole one in a day. And, you get kind of fluey. You feel a little bit sick. And don't get disheartened from that. It's just that your body's not used to it. And if you're introducing a lot of the beneficial bacteria into your gut, you're going to be, making less room for all those pathogenic bacteria that might be hanging around in your gut to live, and so they'll die off, and that's going to cause a die-off reaction, which could feel a little bit like a stomach flu or something. You just don't feel right, a little headachy or something. So if that happens with the fermented foods, don't think that you can't do it. You just have to back way, way off. Like just start with a drop, like I said. So for the elderly, regular meals, regular eating times, maybe even want to say like, I'm going to make soup, like broccoli cauliflower soup every Wednesday night, or, just have something regular a couple times a week. And if you can do the, figure out how you can set your schedule so you can eat more regular hours is really good. Okay. So, I think the water too, the issue is the coldness of it. So if you go into a Chinese restaurant, a lot of times you'll see the old people in there, they're just like drinking little cups of hot water. They're not even drinking tea. They'll order the water hot rather than, with, of course, not with ice in it. So whenever I go to a restaurant, I just tell them no ice. With my water, it usually comes really cold anyway. But so you want to have the warm liquid. So our teachers used to tell us, just add some hot water to your cold water. If you're drinking water out of a bottle, you have water for the day or something, just add a little hot water to it, especially in the wintertime, because that'll just kind of bring it a little bit up warm. We talked about cold last time and how cold, and kidneys don't like cold. So anytime you introduce too much cold foods, it's going to have an effect both on your digestion and your kidneys. Because the digestive fires in the wintertime would be less strong, say, than in the summertime because of just the time of year and the sun and the heat in the day, that kind of thing. So you want to help that out by eating more warm foods, warm cooked foods, right, and teas and stuff. So, and then, there's the kidney yin and the kidney yang in that I Ching symbol, right, the Tao. So the yang is the more like warming aspect of us. It's the upper part, the daytime, the light, and the yin is the cooling aspect. So the water and the feminine, the dark, the nighttime. So you want to have those things in balance. So, it depends on what time of sort of your life cycle where you are. So if you're like, I'm 58 years old, so I'm still kind of little bit on the tail end of every once in a while I get a hot flash if I drink too much coffee or, eat something that's really spicy a few days in a row or something. So the food that we eat is going to really affect, our metabolism too. So let's see, where's it going? Oh yeah, so the yin. So I was saying the last time that it's good to eat like ginger and cardamom and chai tea stuff. I didn't say, well, I'm mentioning it now, but chai tea is good because it's got those warming digestive herbs in them. Right. So, but if you are menopausal and you're having hot flashes or night sweats, then you want to look at the kidney yin. And so that's more like cooling. That doesn't mean you're going to drink cold water, but eating cooling foods and cooling teas and stuff. So green tea is a little more cooling than, it's a lot more cooling than coffee. For me in the wintertime, if it's real cold, the green tea is too cold for me and it'll make me cold. And it makes you have to urinate more because when your kidneys get cold, they don't work very good. And that's why when people have, kidney issues, they're peeing all the time. So that's one sign of that there's some kidney weakness. And in Chinese medicine, it's not really necessarily that you have an actual physical kidney problem. Like you don't have to run out to the doctor and get a biopsy on your kidneys or anything. It's just like, no, you just need to warm them up and keep them, just give them a little more attention, pay attention to the seasons. So, so for the kidney yin, so say you're a woman and you're more like having hot flashes or something, then you want to eat, pay attention to maybe eating root, the foods that are in season now would be root vegetables, the, beets and turnips and carrots and all that, onions. So you should eat more of those because that's the yin. The roots is the yin part of the plant. And so you want to eat those. That's going to tonify that yin part of you if you're having you're having some kidney weakness or something in the wintertime, that's a really good thing. And then at the same time, the other things that are in foods that are out now, or that, in storage, is the squashes. So pumpkins and Hubbard squash and all those kind of winter squashes and stuff is also really good. So that kind of keeps it in balance, because you're getting the yin foods and the yang foods, right? And that's what the kidney is the yin and yang, right? So it's the balance of everything, really, and the bottom line in your body is the kidneys. It's that anchor to keep them strong. So this time of year, we talked last time about taking it easy. Don't push yourself. It's not a good time of year to be, sweating too much or anything. We do sweat lodges here, so I just take it easy. I don't do a lot of sweat lodges in the winter. Maybe one or two altogether, but just you want to keep your sweat inside of you, so you're not wasting any of your vital. Like that sweat is actually a part of your immune system. So if you open your pores up too much in the wintertime, then you're going to just debilitate your immune system, your body's ability to fight off diseases and colds and flus and stuff like that. So really taking it easy in the winter. So also, let's see. So the kidneys, every single organ in your body, so in Chinese medicine there's 5 organ systems. So the kidney, they all relate to a certain color and a certain sound and a planet and, a body part and a tree. And there's all these different things that pertain to each organ. And so the kidney, the emotions are attached to these organs too. So there's a unbalanced emotion in the wintertime is fear. And so, and then the balanced emotions are gentle strength, gentleness and strength, and faith and trust. So, so it's a really good time of year to be working on those things, right? So I was just listening to the previous talk and talking about, I guess it was in the chat room maybe, fears. And that's really, it's really like fears that have to do with our physical safety. The very bottom baseline kind of emotions of safety. And they, whoever they are, them crazy bumpheads, as Bob Marley liked to call them, they chose the dark, the nighttime, to come in and do a lot of ravishing of cultures and peoples and stuff. And so, I think that they also, in Chinese medicine too, and a lot of other, traditional thinking, there's ghosts. There's things such as entities that are hanging around, and they like those dark corners. They like to hide. So, so people get afraid at nighttime because there might be different kinds of entities running around. And so the stronger you can get your kidneys, the better possibility you're going to even have to deal with those kind of things, or to just go, screw you, get out of my space, because they're always around. It seems like they're doing their best to mess us up and to interfere with our lives. So healthy kidneys with that gentleness and strength, right? And the trust and faith. It's like spiritual faith, spiritual confidence in ourselves that we can call the shots. That, we get into a dark corner or something happens where we feel attacked. And that could be a kidney thing, a fear thing that keeps coming up over and over and over. And part of it could be because our kidneys are weak, and we haven't maybe been eating regular meals or having more regularity in our lives. So getting up at a certain hour, going to bed at a certain hour, that kind of thing, exercising on Tuesdays or whatever you can do. Our teachers used to say, even if you did some Tai Chi or Qigong or whatever exercise you like, for 2 minutes at the same exact time every day, it's going to like have this huge benefit for you. If you have it in that, it'll be way more beneficial if you do it regularly, even if it's only for a minute or two, like at 9 a.m. or 9:05 or whatever it is. Of course, it's kind of hard to do that for a lot of people, but just wanted to get you an idea of those concepts for the kidney. So I think there was, about kombucha. Kind of wanted to talk about that. Kombucha, I really love kombucha. I make my own. And, it's great stuff. I think, it's just another fermented food. I also have made this lemon. One time, last year, somebody gave me a whole mess of lemons, and I froze them all. I didn't know what to do. I squeezed it and froze it, and then in the summertime, I made lemon soda. And then I forgot about it in the refrigerator. It was so delicious. The longer you let that stuff sit around, the better it is. It's really good. So my kombucha now is mixed with, I went up in the fall to the mountains here and got elderberries. And so I cooked that up and made it kind of just a liquid. And I mixed a whole bunch with apples from my tree, because we have a bunch of apples, and got an apple tree out front, and so I mixed the two and let them. So I make the kombucha, and if you guys want instructions on making kombucha, you can find it online. It's super easy. But so I really encourage you to do that. It's really great stuff. It's supposed to be anti-cancer, but so I like to mix it with local foods or something, so to make a taste. So I put the apples and the elderberry in this time, and it's really good. And then the elderberries, of course, is like a flu prevention. So that's good. And I just make sure I try to drink, a half a cup or a cup every day. And so people say it'll make your hair turn, color again. I got a bunch of gray hair on my head. So it's supposed to make you start getting your hair color back. I even have I bought a barrel, an oak barrel to make a kombucha barrel. So it's oak. It's kind of cool. There's a kombucha camp, I think, online, or Kombucha Mama, maybe. And there's a book called the Kombucha Book, and that's a really great book if you can find it. It's really good. It's got a lot of information about kombucha and what to look out for and stuff while you're doing it. Because it takes a while to really get the art of making it down. So olive oil, Epsom salt, and grapefruit juice to detox liver and kidney. So detoxing is better done in the springtime. So if you're thinking about doing a detox, it's probably better to wait just a couple months or something. But I have not the Epsom salt, but I think I don't know, is that in a bath, or that's like in a drink or something from Red? I would say just wait for a little while on that, because you want to focus on nourishing, because the kidneys are about nourishing and about staying, really, what is that, storage, right? So we want to store our chi, or our energy, in the wintertime. And then in the spring, it's a perfect time to detox. Let's see. Oh, I saw that about the red color. I'm going to try that. The red light. Yeah. Hair color. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to move on here. So we talked about the positive and negative polarities of yin and yang theory. So interesting about dogs and cats. I just remembered this little tidbit. Cats really like the negative polarity, and dogs like positive. Oh, wait, no, is that right? Yeah, I think that's right. So the negative polarity would be things like, waterfalls and fountains, and, the water, which is the negative or the feminine quality, the cooling aspect, electricity, electrical outlets, and Wi-Fi and all that. That's kind of like a positive polarity. So are streets and cement and buildings and stuff. So that's like the positive. So people feel really relaxed. They go into a negative polarity environment. That's why they put fountains in big buildings and downtowns and stuff, and trees and stuff, so that people will feel better, because you need that balance of the positive and the negative polarities, right, to feel comfortable. So, cats often, is that right? Or maybe it's the opposite. Dang it. I was going to say, because cats are really healers. Like, they'll come up and just sit right where your stomach hurts. Or, like, I broke my arm a few years ago, and my cat came up, and she never did this before or after. But she came up like 5 full times and just fell asleep on my arm right where it was broken. Like 5 times and for an hour. And she just slept there, and I could feel her purring, and it was really entering into the tissue in my arm, and it was pretty cool. So maybe that's what it is. God, I'm going to look that up. I'm sorry, guys. Maybe it's the cat. I'll look it up and tell you next time. See what else here we got on my little cheat sheet notes here. What time is it? 1:30. Okay, so let's look at like autoimmune disease, diabetes, fatigue, and bone diseases like arthritis, missing kidneys. Okay, so those all have to do with the kidneys, right? So the bones are the body part that the kidneys govern. So it's like the deepest part. The marrow and the bones is the deepest part of your body. And that's what the kidneys regulate. So anybody with like arthritis, osteo or whatever, bone pain, is a kidney issue. So you really want to watch out for that. So just really taking care of the kidneys for that too. So whatever you're doing for your arthritis. You also probably want to really just take into consideration these lifestyle kind of things, and it'll just be easier on your kidneys to perform its job. And so because a lot of times when people have illnesses or diseases, part of it is because of our lifestyle, and it's affecting that organ, and then that organ can't do its job. It's like busy trying to fend off all these, like maybe somebody's, staying up super late and partying a lot in the wintertime and then sleeping really late, and just really off kilter and stuff. And so then, or a lot of stress, a lot of fear, like giving into the fear a lot and just playing old tapes and old stories in your mind over and over, or attracting situations, fearful situations over and over. That really wears on you, and so it's going to affect your kidneys. Just hand in hand with all the other tools you're getting from other people on these shows, it's really cool. I was talking to Patty right before, and how we just cover so many different aspects of healing on these programs. And so, it'll just be easier if you start to take care of your kidneys, especially in the season that the organ is pertaining to. So that fear, want to do everything we can to placate it. So you just look at it like a little child inside of you, and maybe feeling this strength of a very benevolent and loving parent or grandparent who comes and just, wraps their arms around you and makes you feel safe in this dark time of year. So we want to bring that feeling of safety and gentle strength back to you if you are having these kinds of things going on. Even, you might have the diseases, but you don't think you have that fear stuff or feeling of lack or insecure, like that your life, that the bottom line of your life is in jeopardy. That's a deep-seated fear. So even if we have to create little bubbles, like people were talking on the chat before, creating bubbles where you just pretend like you feel okay, and imagine what it would be like to have a full day go by when you were feeling really safe, you had enough food to eat, and people were nice to you, that kind of thing. Because we just all got so traumatized by, you know, this whatever energy or movement to try to traumatize us. So it really gets stored in the kidneys. That's why it's just so important to you know, take some good time off. And the other thing about sleep I wanted to mention is that when you sleep, the hours that you get before midnight is worth like at least double the amount of rest and nourishment that you're going to get after midnight. So I know half of you guys are going to hang up right now because you got to go to bed. But anyway, that's how it is. So if you can get to bed, you know, a little bit earlier in the winter time, it's going to really help nourish and strengthen your kidneys. Wanted to touch on that. And then I think we talked about cold foods and drinks. Maybe I didn't last time. I think I might have a little bit. So you want to just make sure that you're eating warm foods, okay, and you're staying warm. Yeah, and then also wrapping your kidneys. You know, a lot of traditional cultures had, or still do, they have these wraps. They're like wool or whatever nice colored fabric that people wrap around their midsection. And so basically what they're doing is wrapping their kidneys, and they're keeping them warm. So because as we grow older, if your kidneys are nice and warm in the winter, we're not going to be putting our backs out, which low back pertains to the kidneys too. And just strengthens all those things about the kidneys that like to be strengthened and nourished in the wintertime. So especially like women, menstrual women, people who are menstruating. No, we're not talking about men who are menstruating here. But yeah, so you want to just, you know, encourage the young women to wrap themselves. In Mexico, they have these really beautiful shawls, and I'm sure in other cultures they're called rebosos. And in the state where my family's from, they have these really beautiful black and white rebosos, and they're all handmade out of this really fine cotton. They're so pretty. And so I think that's nice because you got the feng shui of the black and white, the balance of the kidneys. And so you wrap that around. I mean, you can use whatever you have, but I like to mix in traditional dress, actually. It's really important to, you know, bring our bodies into equilibrium with who we are. And so, so taking a nice long shawl and just wrapping it around your low back, your kidney areas, it's very helpful for, like, if people have low back pain or kidney issues, urinary problems, anything like that. And so let's see, what else was I going to say about that? Oh yeah, pregnant women too. It's really important to strengthen, you know, take care of the kidneys. So wrapping the low back and the kidney area during pregnancy, any kind of women's issues is very important. But men too, you know, men, and you know, you see them in Peru and in Mexico and different cultures, and I'm sure, you know, they're in Europe too. There's you remember images of people wearing those low back, you know, the wraps. Somebody gave me one from Japan once. I think it was from the traditional Japanese women's wrap, you know, clothes. And I love that. It was so really long and this beautiful wool. And I used to wear that all the time when I was still on doing that, the menstruating thing. So that's a really good thing to think about too. Let me see. So other parts of the bodies that are affected by the kidneys, low back, the knees, and the heels. So people with low back pain, any kind of bone pain, arthritis, knees and heels, those are all kidney related to the kidneys too. Ankles probably somewhat. And then as you're treating those things, you know, with whatever kind of natural things you can find around, herbs, and there's just so much that you can do that you don't have to run into doctors for everything, because they really, you know, from what I see, I don't know. You know, when I broke my arm, it's like, take me to the hospital. So they're good for that, and for, you know, probably diagnosing and stuff. But even that the diagnostics in the hospitals are pretty shady sometimes. So I want to be careful. I was listening to someone, and they were talking about how, a CAT scan is equal to 500 x-rays, but that's not true. It's equal to 750 x-rays each CAT scan. So just be careful. I don't know where that came up, but anyway, let's see. Maybe, you know what? How about can I take a little break right now? I know it's not like the top of the hour or anything, but we're going to take like just a 2-minute break, like a 1-song break. Is that okay, Patty? Okay, cool.
With a little love and some tenderness, we'll walk upon the water, we'll rise above the mist. With a little peace and some harmony, we'll take the world together, we'll take them by the hand. 'Cause I got a hand for you. Oh, I wanna run with you. Yesterday, I saw you standing there. Your hair was down, your eyes were red. No comb, I touched your hair. I said, get up and let me see you smile. We'll take a walk together, walk the road a while. 'Cause I got a hand for you. I got a hand for you. I wanna run with you. Won't you let me run with you? Hold my hand. Want you to hold my hand. I think that you a place where you can be anything you wanna be, because I wanna love you the best that I can. You see, I was wasted, and I was wasting time, till I thought about your problems, I thought about your craft, then I stood up, and then I screamed aloud. I don't wanna be part of your problems, don't wanna be part of your crowd, no. 'Cause I got a hand for you, I got a hand for you. I wanna run, won't you let me run with you? Hold my hand, want you to hold my hand. I'll take you to the promised land. Maybe we can change the world, but I wanna love you the best that I can. Let me run, won't you let me love? Want you to hold my hand. I think that you a place where you can be anything you wanna be, because no, 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 no. Want you to hold my hand. I think that you a promised land. Maybe we can change the world, but I wanna love you the best that I can. Oh, best that I can.
Okay, we're all back here. I hope you like that song. I don't even know what played, actually. Should have asked Patty. Okay, so I wanted to kind of switch over a little bit to some of the sort of traditional pattern or traditional thoughts about creating our own reality, because when we get scared in that dark time of the year, or in what we consider to be a dark kind of part of our life, so any kind of fears that they can cripple us. And the natural inclination for our bodies, for our organism, is to want to live, right? And so when we're getting that trauma of threatening us, of our livelihood or our safety in our homes and stuff through war, or, you know, any kind of semblance of war, which here in California, I mean, we're definitely in a freaking war with all the fires going on. And hopefully, I mean, I'll get around to talking about that at some point. I wanted to do it today, but, you know, we're living in a war zone here. And I have the proof to back it up. It's just, I mean, firsthand experience of, you know, seeing what they've been doing here. So it's like traumatizing. I feel, you know, like I walk around and I don't think about it all the time, but it's just, you know, this constant sort of like little nagging about, you know, their control and stuff. So I think I can hear you, Patty. So you might want to mute yourself. Well, I can hear you. Probably they can't, but okay. Anyhow, let's see. Okay, so we have, I have this really beautiful elder that was living here where I grew up, and he kind of adopted us into his life, and we took him around and did a lot of stuff with him. And he was just such an inspiration about, because he went through a lot of really hard stuff, you know. I mean, the Native people here, there's still, people think that's all over. Sorry, it's not. It's just a constant thing. And so whenever we can find those examples in our lives of people who, you know, can remind us of the power that we have to create our own reality. And he used to say, he'd be like, we got to believe, you know, you got to believe in the Indian spirit, you got to believe. And, you know, he was an amazing sweat lodge, you know, leader, and just really interesting guy. But that's also one of the main precepts that I read once from Buddhism. Is one of the main, most important principles to get is that spiritual confidence. And so, as we're dealing with our physical health, it's not just physical; it's spiritual too. It's emotional. So the Chinese medicine doesn't separate the emotions from the physical or the spiritual. So it all goes hand in hand. It's this big ball of wax, which is you, right? So as we're learning these new tools, or these, you know, not new for a lot of people, but, you know, meditation and visualization and learning how to, you know, send entities on their way, that kind of thing, it's going to be way more powerful if we can start to have our body really know that we are, have integrity. And you can do that through food, right? And proper kind of living lifestyles and stuff. So it's so cool to be on with all you guys and see or hear what people are doing in their lives to make their lives and their community lives better. So I'm just really grateful to all my elders who have passed on teachings that I could help, you know, share with you guys. So I just want to tell you a little story about that, about creating our own reality and the power of intention and putting our life force energy towards what we believe in. So we had on Mount Shasta here, I live about 40 minutes north of Mount Shasta driving, about 30 miles maybe. And so one time, let's see, it was about, I think it's a constant thing, they're always trying to do this. One year, I think it was Nestle's came, and they wanted to build a 500,000 square foot building on the site of Mount Shasta. above the headwaters of the Sacramento River to, suck water out, to be selling our water off. And so there was like this big, a lot of people jumped on and started having meetings and stuff, and we created this organization. And I brought our grandfather there too, because he wanted to go. He's like, oh, we got to go, Mount Shasta. And so he, I just saw that chat thing. So it was the very first meeting, and we walked in there, and, our grandfather, he never had that much money. Every once in a while, somebody would slip him some money or this or that, but, he was always like really broke. And he, walked into this meeting, and they were doing their thing and talking about, the whole thing and all the downfalls and problems with this plan. So he walks up, and they were going to pass the hat to try to raise some money to help out with this, with the efforts to save, this area from that huge water plant, being installed on the site of Mount Shasta, which would have been a huge eyesore, to say the least. Anyway, so he walks up, and he was the very first person to put money in there, and he had a $100 bill in his pocket. And I'm telling you, this guy, he hardly ever had money, so that was a big deal for him. So he had a $100 bill, and he was just like, got all into his spirit, and he just, with all of his spiritual confidence, held this $100 bill up in the air to spirit. It was like, okay, we're calling on spirit to do the right thing here. We're going to put this money in there and plant this seed so we get exactly the amount of money as we need to do what we need to do here to stop this thing, this Nestle's plant coming in. And so he just like, bam, right down into the hat. And it was really cool because it was just such, for me, it was like this huge lesson in, what's $100? It's this piece of paper with a bunch of stuff written on it with some crazy lunatic's picture on there and stuff, but it also is a resource. And so he just was like, put his spiritual integrity and all of that confidence into that $100 bill, into that hat. And then like the next day, I think it was the Gap's California guy, one of the main CEOs or something, called and was like, what do you guys need? He used to vacation up there every year. So, it was just like this really cool example of how we can just step out of this arena of being controlled by fear. So if he was controlled by fear, he would have never taken that $100 bill and thrown it in that hat. Because I've seen him a bunch of times not be able to pay his rent or have to, go to people's houses and ask for money for gas or stuff like that. But it's like, he wasn't afraid. He was not afraid to take that $100 bill and throw it into that hat. And because it was all his spiritual might was to go to help defend Mount Shasta. And, I brought this up because it's a water story too. But, and the other thing was like his ears, he had amazing kidney chi. Because people who have really long earlobes, which I don't, so I got to be really careful in the wintertime. He had these really long earlobes. And, the guy grew up eating traditional foods. He ate, his acorn soup and salmon and deer meat a lot and lots of herbs. So, unfortunately, as he got older, people, would bring him to doctors and stuff. And, I started getting hooked up on different doctor things. But I think he actually weathered the doctor pills really well because of the fact that he ate traditional foods so much as, his whole life. So he used to heal people with cancer with just acorn soup and deer meat and salmon and doing his, things with him, his healings and power of intention, the power of song and the drums and the rattles. So, if you guys are anywhere near, anybody that knows about herbs, any kind of herbalist, a lot of times there are these young women who are trying to make a little living. They're making tinctures or herbal tea blends, things like that. Just start to have faith in that, and to go out and support these people that are doing that, because they are keeping the knowledge alive, and so we need to keep them alive by supporting them with our resources and our spiritual confidence in our brothers and sisters around who are really committed and trying to maybe make a living or part of a living or something, because you don't make a lot being an herbalist. But I just like our grandpa was really, he just loved Chinese medicine. He came a lot for acupuncture and the herbal stuff, and he did his own herbal thing too from the native herbs that he knew about. So like I said in that first show that I did, about stories and stuff, like if you can be with your elders or people, your neighbors or anybody who's older who has even memories that their grandmothers would talk about, you want to write stuff down and try taking those herbs or doing something with them, looking them up and getting together to be able to preserve this, our life force that's enhanced by our herbal brothers and sisters, right? Those plant people. So, trying to think. Was there any other questions, you guys? I didn't see any in there. If Vanessa, if you guys had any flour. Oh, okay. So flour out of acorns. So that's super important, you guys. The acorns have got to be leached for a really long time. So our grandpa, his water had iron in it, so his acorns would always turn green. So I think it was iron. No, maybe it was copper or something, whatever turns green. So he would bring it over to our house, and we would make this kind of basket in our sink out of fir boughs. Firs are the evergreen that have real short needles. And we'd make it like a basket out of that and put a piece of kitchen cloth, which is like really thin muslin. It's not cheesecloth. It's a little bit thicker than, more woven than cheesecloth. But so we'd make a bed of that on top of those boughs, and then we'd make the acorn powder by putting it in a grinder. So he had one of those Vitamixes we gave him. And so we grind it up really good in that, and then he showed us how to get a plate. You get a plate like one of those Corningware. They're kind of like it was a cross between plastic and ceramic. It was this weird kind of, he said that was a perfect kind of plate, but probably use any kind of plate. And you just bounce the flour on top of this plate with your two hands over you put newspaper down on the table, which is kind of a little iffy, but so we would do that, and then all the heavy kind of more coarse pieces would pop off of that plate, and what's left on the plate would be this fine, like a fine layer of really finely ground acorn meal. And so you could take all the rest of the big pieces and regrind them and do that again, and just keep doing that through the whole batch of acorns that you ground up, right? So you want to get left with a bunch of this flour that's really fine, and that's how we did it. And if I'm not making myself clear, you could ask me to elaborate. But and then you kind of soften it up with your hands, get it loosened up, and so it's like a flour. And then you put it into that your kitchen cloth, that really fine cotton cloth. They call it kitchen cloth here. I'm not sure. You can make cheese out of it and stuff. I'm not sure what they call it in Europe, but and then you fill the basin that you've made with water. And preferably good water. So we had a really good filter in our house, so we would use that, and we'd just keep filling it up and let it leach down. So it leaches out, and then you fill it up again, leach it down, fill it up, leach it down. So all day long, you want to be doing that. And you have to do that for 4 days. So of course, we had to go to work and stuff, so maybe we did it a little bit longer. Some people, traditionally they would put it in a creek bed, right, and have, they just knew how to. I guess they would just make it. Gosh, I heard about it, how to do it. You put it in the sand where the water's still coming through. Of course, the water's real clean back then, and so they just set it up in a way that there was a real fine trickle of water always going through, and would leach it that way. And then they would pick up the whole thing once when you're done, you stop putting water in it. You just let it sit there for half a day or something, so all the water really leaches out nice and good, and it gets a little bit not dough, but it's like soft, or the water's out of it. And then you pick it up. So they used to pick it up, that piece. It was like in the shape of a bowl, and they would just scrape off the sand off of it, and then they'd use that to make your soup. Right, and acorn soup, if you've ever had it, it's pretty boring, but it grows on you, and it's very, very nourishing, very nourishing. So that takes care of those anti-nutrients that we talked about on that first show that I talked. If you didn't see that, you might want to listen to that one. So because if all the native cultures knew about the importance of leaching out or sprouting or soaking, so that you unlock those anti-nutrients, the molecules or the stuff that's in seeds and nuts and legumes and grains that what we call them anti-nutrients, but I think it's like phytic acid or something like that, but it prevents you from absorbing the nutrients in your food if you don't do that. And actually, I heard a story about some native people had forgotten their traditions, and then they started making acorn soup again, and they didn't leach it for long enough. And I don't know if this is true, but this is what I heard one time. But it's kind of a good allegory. But anyway, they didn't leach it long enough, and people were getting serious kidney disease from it, because acorns are really strong. They're very strong medicine. And he used to, I think that there was, when you're cracking the acorns, so it's a huge process. So you gather the acorns one year, right, and in the fall, and then you let them sit in your house for a whole year or two. So that somehow cures them too. And then you do that whole thing where you grind them and make the flour and leach them. So, you get the idea of how important food was to the traditional people. And he even showed us this one kind of acorn once. We went to get up in Oregon, and I forget which kind it was, but we gathered a whole bunch, and then we went to a creek that was a really clean creek that ran all year round, and you're supposed to bury him for, I think it was 2 years. So, and then you go back, and he would tell us stories about when he was young. He would know where he buried all his stuff, because he would bury stuff a lot in catches and stuff, and he'd okay, it's been 2 years. He'd go back and unbury his acorns and deal with them and make them and stuff. So, I'm not saying we got to do that, but you might want to try. That's what I saw on the chat about acorns. So I was going to say, when you're cracking the acorns open, sometimes they're purple, and there's some kind of mold that gets in there, and we would throw them out. But he always told us that, and you guys don't try this, okay? I don't want to get in trouble if something goes wrong. But he would say, oh yeah, we used to cure cancer with this, and they'd put 6 of the purple acorns into a batch, into the batch, and that was to treat people with cancer. So I know in Chinese medicine that toxins can treat toxic situations. So that was probably, what was going on with that. So yeah, he would, that and the sacred foods of salmon and deer meat, made with prayers, cooked with prayers, and, hunted with prayers. They, basically, there was this really beautiful story that I heard from this Native woman from around here, and she is pretty removed from her traditions, but she's trying to start getting back into it. And she told me of this, one of her elders, who he was this really sweet man, and she said he had the sweetest voice, and he was just so gentle and kind and loving. And she asked him about, killing animals, and he said he almost welled up with tears in his eyes, and he said, if we don't, this is sacred food for us. This is our sacred food, and if they don't feel appreciated, and we don't take them in, and we're not being part of that life cycle, then they're going to disappear. They won't feel like they're part of our life, that they're here for us, and that they will disappear if we stop eating these sacred foods in this sacred way. It's like they're participating in a sacred tapestry of life that we're weaving together with all these different, the plant people and the walking people and the cloud people and the stone people. So there's no fear of death, really, because it's all part of the life process. And and I remember in one of the Carlos Castaneda books, one time he was showing, or Don Juan was showing Carlos about gathering herbs. And I don't know, Carlos asked him a question, something like, "Oh, aren't you afraid of taking too much? Or how do you know which one to pick? Or if you're hurting that plant or something?" And he, same thing, kind of welled up a little bit with tears, but he said, when I go and come up to a plant that I'm going to take some medicine from, I make a prayer to that plant that I will someday, and it's a promise that we are part of the same tapestry of life, that someday my body will be food for your relatives. So I'm going to lay myself down into the earth and give myself to your plant kingdom. So I thought that was really nice. And that's a nice, talk about the life force, right, that we live in. So there's really no fear. It's just part of, this continuity of life that we have here. So, yep, Patty says, life cannot exist without death. Yep. So, and that's for anything, like the carrot, you're not being so nice if you rip that carrot out of the ground, but maybe you are. So saying prayers, our elders used to talk about, even when you're taking stuff from your garden, then you want to give thanks to that garden and to the earth and to the animals that helped you out, the insects, the worms and stuff. So you're always giving thanks for that tapestry of life that we're part of. And thanks to the clouds, So unfortunately today here, we have not one cloud in the sky and no more snow, which normally we would have 2 to 4 feet of snow on the ground. So, yeah, I think, probably need to get out there and give thanks to our cloud brothers up there. They're still there. We still love them. It's just they're getting attacked too. So just remembering that we're all in this together and take care. And I think that's about it, Patty. If there's any more questions, I can take a couple more questions if people want, or a dehydrator can store the wild berries and herbs. Yeah, dehydrators are good. I just want to make sure they're not too hot. You want to dehydrate stuff pretty cool, especially nuts and stuff. But you want to soak the nuts first, like with almonds or peanuts or any kind of nuts or seeds. You want to soak them first, and for a good amount of time. The bigger the nut or seed, the more time you want. So I think like sunflowers, you soak them for maybe 7 hours or something. And then kind of, I think almonds, you want to do at least 12 hours because they're bigger, or maybe 24 hours. And Brazil nuts too, they're bigger. And then you want to make sure that it's really low, the temperature for nuts, because the oils are really fragile. So, yeah, you want to But I think that for berries and stuff, yeah, apples, I know. I want to get one too. I don't have one. So I'm just looking through the chat room here. If there's any other questions. I don't see any other questions, guys, so been meaning to buy some glue to stop my bed creaking. Keep coming home. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's it. Let's see. You do anything? Oh, dehydrator. Yep. Nope. Okay. Thanks, Vanessa and Patty, for helping out today, and we'll see you next week. Okay. Have a good night, you guys.